Welcome back, viewers. To begin first in the Ocean Division in Kribi, where some workers of the Kribi Deep Sea Port are complaining that their rights are being disrespected by their employers, who are mainly Chinese nationals. They recently disrupted works because they wanted their voices to be heard, and the Minister for Employment and Vocational Training, Chiroma Bakari, made a stopover at the site in Kribi and insisted that the rights of those Cameroonian workers must be respected by the Chinese. Let's now have more with a staff lady, Lucy Liengu-Esie.
These workers of the Kribi Deep Sea Port are worried. They are complaining of maltreatment by the Chinese company. According to them, their rights are being abused.
We are the workers, so we are working with the Chinese. The Chinese are taking us as if we are animals, treating us very bad. We don't eat, we don't feed well here. We don't feed well here. We the workers, we are the one that without us the Chinese cannot work.
Poor payment is one of their problems.
Of 3A, that is about, you are working a daily work is 2,500. The category that they are giving us here is very poor. It's very poor as technician.
In response to the plight of these workers, the Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, Chiroma Bakari, during a working session, has threatened to repatriate the Chinese employers who are still to comply with all the employment formalities in the country.
Is to make sure that all foreigners who have been working here for a while are in regular situation. The second, before I sign the contract, they have to demonstrate that they have recruited as many Cameroonians as they requested the visa, because from now onwards, one foreigner is working, there is a Cameroonian with him who is being trained to replace him after the 2 years or 3 years granted to him. Or in case they are reluctant to doing it, we will drive them out of our country. This is the purpose. You are Cameroonian, you have to be prince in your nation, you have to be proud of what your government is doing.
The Minister of Employment and Vocational Training has also promised to visit all the foreign companies in Cameroon to ensure that they are not violating the Cameroon labor law.
And now prices of basic commodities are set to be on a rise or an increase in Kongsamba in the Mongo division of the Littoral region. The traders, just like the consumers, say it's really difficult now to make ends meet, as Staffman Innocent Azem made a stopover at the Kongsamba main market. He puts together this report for the news.
In the Kongsamba market in the Mongo division of the Littoral region, cost of rice, salt, oil, egusi and other basic commodities have skyrocketed, just like other places across Cameroon.
My oil no day, even savon and so prices don't increase now every day. Voilà le pistache à 350, ça devient à 500. Avant d'alcool 300.
These home managers, who highlight a very challenging situation, implore men to stand tall and pillar their efforts to run a healthy family. That men who give between 25 and 30,000 francs CFA monthly to their wives to buy foodstuffs should raise the amount to at least 50,000 francs CFA.
Donc la femme doit aller faire le pan.
Eux-mêmes ils disent que les salaires même n'ont pas augmenté.
Borrowing now seems to be a relieving action to trusted persons. The reverse is true.
Je n'ai rien fait de 30 000. Voilà celle ma cliente qui m'a prêté une boîte de pistache à 500. Et si elle n'avait pas confiance, elle ne prêtait pas.
These households in Kongsamba believe a lasting solution can be delivered.
Je ne sais pas. Trouvez-nous. Allez voir Paul Biya. Il nous sort un budget pour nous. May government really try for help. We see what to be the cost of all these higher of prices. Try for bring them down.
Throughout 2022, hike in prices of basic commodities on the local market is blamed on the Russia-Ukraine war, despite announced government's actions to better the situation so as to raise standard of living. Cameroonians say no change has been felt.
On ne sait vraiment pas ce qui se passe. Pareil dans toutes les filières.
With the cry, say things they don't become hard. C'est grave. On va faire comment?
First, the need to take concrete action.
And the governor of the Central Region is urging the Minister for Territorial Administration and Decentralization to install the chief of the Yezum village. Yezum is a village in the Central Region of the country. The notables of Yezum say they are embarrassed hearing of another chief when they already had Chief Sombu Angula appear as the chief of Yezum. Our reporter Glory Mala completes the story.
Notables and elites of Yezum village in the Upper Sanaga division had earlier designated a chief before the release of the governor of the Central Region. In the release, the governor calls on the Minister of Territorial Administration to acknowledge Sobum Angola Pierre Kate Sabra as first-class traditional ruler of Yezum, a situation which puts the elders of the village in a dilemma: who to choose, their unchosen chief or that of the government authorities. The Ministry of Territorial Administration has been actively involved in the crowning of chiefs in some communities in Cameroon. The most recent case is that of Bangu, where the intervention of the designation of a new chief led to the population protesting. This, they say, was against the traditional norms. Also, the public authorities' involvement in the Boganjo issue. The inhabitants of Boganjo in the Tiku subdivision, southwest region, recently protested. The divisional officer promised to dissolve some villages in the division on grounds that they are not officially recognized. Traditional laws in Cameroon are at risk according to experts and needs special attention.
And viewers, we told you in the headlines that the United Nations has called for the immediate release of the CRM political party members who have been detained in Kondengi, in Yaoundé, as well as the Anglophone separatist leaders. The United Nations say their arrest and detention is illegal or arbitrary. Let's now have more for me and Trong Sanda.
This published on November the 4th, 2022. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention wrote that the detention of militants of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement's opposition political party, as well as English-speaking separatist leaders, is arbitrary and they must be released immediately. The organ of the United Nations goes further to say that the detention of these leaders by the government of Cameroon is void of legal basis. The United Nations says the rights of 15 activists of the opposition Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, including its president, Professor Maurice Kamto, have been flouted. In the case of the 15 CRM party supporters, the United Nations Working Group wrote that their arrest and detention is arbitrary because they were arrested and detained in the course of exercising their freedom of expression and their rights of association. In the case of Sesekwa Yuktabe and 9 others, the United Nations criticizes the fact that they were tried by a military court in violation of the International Covenant of Civil Rights signed by Cameroon. Prosecuted in particular for apology for acts of terrorism, the separatist leader and 9 others were arrested in Nigeria in 2018. Among the violations, according to the United Nations, is their arrest without an arrest warrant and their extradition to Cameroon, whereas they had refugee status. It is, however, uncertain what impact the United Nations opinion will have on the appeal trial of the activists, which should resume on Thursday, the 17th of November 2022. Lawyers for both cases are calling on the Cameroonian authorities to implement the task force's recommendations and release their clients.
We now move on to this other human interest story in Munatele. Munatele is a locality in the central region of the country where 1 person died and 3 others injured following a family dispute in that locality, and that dispute stems from a woman's decision to refuse that her sister-in-law be buried in their family compound. Immaculate Fogwe completes the story for us.
A dispute amongst family members living in Monartile in the Leke division of the Central region turns bloody Both camps are at loggerheads over where their grandmother's corpse is supposed to be buried. The violent dispute resulted to 1 dead and 4 others severely injured.
I
was in the farm when someone informed me that there is a fight in the compound, so I rushed there and I asked what was happening. They told me I was the one they were looking for, so they started beating me with sticks and punching me on the face. The problem is, our grandmother's sister-in-law has refused that our grandmother be buried in her own compound.
Ils se sont versés sur moi.
This woman died at the age of more than 15 years old, but before dying, she told us she wanted us to bury her in her compound close to her kitchen. Everyone is aware of her last wish, but her sister-in-law has not given us access. The attackers went ahead to burn down some of the houses in the compound while ransacking others. The Monatele Gendarmerie Brigade has intercepted the woman and her son who launched the attack. While waiting for the corpse of Mama Kanda Melanie to be buried, the village is equally mourning one of them who died as a result of the violent fight.
And now we take you out of the country first to neighboring Mali, where a letter sent to a senior UN peacekeeping official reveals that Ivory Coast will gradually withdraw its troops and police from the United Nations peacekeeping force in Mali. And analysts describe this as the latest blow to a mission which has seen several Western nations pull out this year. Our staffman, Babula Jonathan, completes the story for us.
The news of Ivory Coast's decision to withdraw its troops and police from the United Nations peacekeeping force in neighboring Mali comes days after Britain said it was pulling out 300 troops from the mission. This follows similar withdrawals this year by other Western nations, including former colonial master France. The withdrawal was confirmed by 2 senior Ivory Coast security sources. Since June, relations between Bamako and Abidjan have been very tense due to the 46 soldiers detained on grounds that they are mercenaries sent to destabilize the regime in power. Analysts also attribute the decision of Ivory Coast to withdraw its troops from Mali to its close ties with France. France is accused of supporting terrorism in Mali. France is said to have masterminded a destabilization mission in Mali. In Mali, it is believed that many of the sanctions of the regional body against Mali were masterminded by Ivory Coast with the influence of France. Political science researcher at the University of Douala, Dr. Freddy Lakme, thinks that African states have to be united and sincere towards each other in the fight against security problems in Mali and other parts of the continent.
And over to the United Nations, we now take this cover shot. The former U.S. President Donald Trump is still on the news again. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has launched his search bid for the White House, declaring America's comeback starts right now. At his Florida estate, Trump is quoted to have said, "We have to save our country." Mr. Trump's announcement comes as some fellow Republicans blame him for the party's lackluster performance in last week's midterm elections. President Joe Biden, who defeated Mr. Trump 2 years ago, has said he may run for re-election in 2024. According to Trump, 4 million of Americans the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. Trump says in order to make America great and glorious again, is announcing his candidacy for president of the United States. Shortly before the speech, Donald Trump vowed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission, formally declaring his presidential candidacy for setting up a fundraising. And now, before we move on to spot our viewers, these elements just coming into our studio, Professor Maurice Kamto of the CRM political party was speaking to some militants of his party today in Yaoundé concerning the comrades who have been in detention. He said the legal opinion of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention is binding on Cameroon as a member state. Let's now have an excerpt of Professor Maurice Kamto selected for us by Babila Jonathan.
I will not take any risk to tell you that the judicial system of Cameroon is going to change because the working group of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention have issued that opinion. It is a legal opinion binding for Cameroon as a member state of the United Nations. Whether our government is going to implement it is another story. But the point is that you cannot be a member of the international community and just apply a policy of pick and choose when it comes to the implementations of the international rule of law or the decision of the international bodies. You are bound by every single rule from a convention you are party to. And in this case, Cameroon have ratified the 1966 Covenant on political and civil rights in 1984, and therefore is bound by every single rule contained in that covenant and all the decisions issued by the international body, legal bodies created by that covenant. Therefore, I can assume that as a country which respects itself and would like to be regarded as or looked at as a country which respects itself, the Cameroonian government have no choice but to implement that opinion. That's my opinion. But having said that, you know that some government can say we don't care about what has been said by the UN body. The fact is that the international community still have power or rooms to put pressure on the government to implement. It will take a very long time to explain how it works. But the opinion of the working group has been forwarded to the High Commissioner of the United Nations in charge of human rights. And we believe that they will take all necessary measures to make sure that the Cameroonian government is abide by the law and by the decision. The second question was whether the opinion was focused only on the CRM militants or encompasses the Anglophone militants. I would say it is focused only on CRM militants. Why? Because it was related to the peaceful marches. The communications to the international bodies were based on those who were arrested during the peaceful marches of 2019 and 2020. And that's why. But I think that the English-speaking Cameroonians who are jailed have their own lawyers. And I assume that these lawyers are doing this type of job for them. Look, for instance, not very long before the publication of this opinion of the working group, I think that is the Committee of Human Rights of the United Nations also published a decision on the case of Mr. Sisiku and others. Anglophone detainees in Kondengi, meaning that there are procedures concerning their case which is ongoing before these bodies.
And now in sports, the 15-man delegation of Equinoxe Radio and Television who left the head office yesterday for Qatar have already arrived, and they are prepared to take along the thousands of viewers along the football jamboree in Qatar. Staffman Smart Njikan Gabriel is one of the members of that delegation. He now briefs us on their arrival at the airport.
We are sending warm greetings to you out there in Douala. You're welcome to the Doha International Airport. The Equinoxe television team that left Douala on Tuesday have successfully arrived here in Doha, and it was over more than 9 hours of journey that we made, with a stopover in Cairo's International Airport in Egypt before we took off for Doha International Airport. But just to note that activities here at the Doha International Airport are still going on timidly, because we noticed the arrival of some foreign journalists too that are coming into the town of Qatar only this Wednesday. But we know already that some teams that will be playing in this year's edition of the World Cup here in Doha, Qatar, are already in town. And we want to tell you that Senegal and Australia were amongst the first teams that came to Qatar for this World Cup. And to note that the international airport here in Doha is still gaining steam, because for now fans have not yet arrived. Fans will hear they will be trooping into town from the 18th of November 2022. At the Doha International Airport, Eric Laurent Ouattara, Raphael Dipanda, Nana Ponsabel, Smart Njikan Gabriel on special assignment in Doha, Qatar for the 2022 World Cup.
Thank you, Smart. We stay with you. You tell us that journalists have continued to rush to the different media points or registration booths in Qatar days before the opening of the World Cup competition to take place in that country. The accreditation would enable media practitioners covering the World Cup to have an effective impact in the competition. You are a special envoy to Qatar, Smart Njikan Gabriel, and you tell us that apart from the accreditation committees, FIFA is also giving out theirs. Tell us more, Smart.
You're welcome to the MESREP Accreditation Center here in Qatar. This is where the local organizing committee is giving accreditation to some media men who are going to cover the World Cup that will be coming up in some few days' time. And of course, while we were making a tour within the media center, we noticed that several media organs, both local and international media organs, were present, and the persons who are in charge say every blessed day when the media personalities come, they have to go through their passport, from their passport before the accreditation cards are being printed out.
This media area takes all the media guys from the whole world, and they come here to collect their accreditation, and they are allowed to go to media center and fan festival and like that. And every day, like, we print for more than 10,000 accreditation here. And with the accreditation card printed out, these media personnel will have the opportunity to do any work linking to camera within Qatar. It is very tough if you want to come into Qatar during this period without any permission for you to film, because even at the level of the airport, your cameras could be seized if it is not indicated within your media channel. That is what is happening here. And of course, we met some of the journalists who have come to do the accreditation. We met with a Turkish journalist who is very excited being in Qatar.
We're very much thinking that Qatar is going to achieve very good success with this World Cup, and we are very excited about it.
Turkey are partnering with Qatar in terms of security to ensure that this World Cup is of a success.
Turkey very much supporting the Qatar. Turkey is sending some security forces and everything. Like, I think Turkey have a good approach on the World Cup that's happening in Qatar.
In Qatar, things are building up timidly. We moved around the town. We noticed that the town is not booming like a big competition is happening. But we are counting days to the first match that will pit host nation Qatar to Ecuador. Qatar is playing the World Cup for the first time in history, and it is because they are the host nation. From the MESREP Accreditation Center here in Qatar, we are Raphael Dipanda, Eric Ouattara, Nana Ponsabel, Smart Njiken Gabriel covering the 2022 World Cup in Qatar.
Thank you, Smart, and courage to you guys in Qatar. And thank you, viewers, for always being with us on Equinoxe Television. Don't go away. Our programs continue. Julien Beth Bissai will be with you at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. Bye-bye for now.
Equinoxe Télévision,